Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for this explainer, proudly brought to you by Forge College. Today, we're jumping right into our circuit breaker pattern deep dive. Now, to give you some context, this is part of our Advanced Security Patterns and Best Practices module, which sits inside the broader Smart Contract Security track. If you were with us for our last lesson on the principles of defensive programming, you'll remember we talked a lot about building a ship with a heavily reinforced, double-layered hull. It's incredibly strong, right? It keeps the water out during normal sailing. But what happens if you hit an iceberg you literally didn't see coming? Even the strongest hull can spring a leak. When water starts rushing in, you don't just stand there analyzing the strength of your steel. No way. You need an emergency, watertight door that you can slam shut to stop the whole ship from sinking. In the world of smart contract security, that emergency watertight door is called the circuit breaker pattern, and today we are going to learn exactly how to build one. Okay, here's our blueprint for today. 1. When defenses fail. 2. Meet the circuit breaker. 3. Building the emergency switch. 4. Testing your failsafe. 5. Avoiding common pitfalls. And 6. Wrapping up the breaker. Let's dive right in. Section 1. When defenses fail. Look, even if you've written the most beautiful, bulletproof input validations on the planet, the harsh reality of Web3 is that the unexpected can and absolutely will happen. To really grasp where we are in our security journey, let's contrast two distinct approaches. First, we have defensive programming. This is your passive protection. It's your strict input validations, your fail-safe defaults, essentially the guardrails you build into your code. Then you have the circuit breaker. This is your active fail-safe. Think of it as a manual emergency brake. When those passive guardrails fail, or maybe an unforeseen exploit is actively draining funds, the circuit breaker allows you, or an automated monitor, to step in, yank a lever, and completely halt critical operations, like token transfers, until you can figure out what's going on. Section 2. Meet the circuit breaker. Let's define what this fail-safe actually is, using something we're all familiar with, the electrical panel in your house. By definition, a circuit breaker is an on-chain guard that stops or restricts critical functions when an error condition is observed, ultimately preserving funds and limiting damage. Think about it. If you plug a faulty toaster into your wall and it shorts out, what happens? Boom! The breaker in your garage trips. It instantly shuts off power to that specific room so your house doesn't catch fire. Our smart contract circuit breaker does the exact same thing. It's a controllable switch that completely stops entire classes of behavior, letting you stop the bleeding, audit the code, and fix the issue without losing the whole shebang. Now pay close attention to this next part, because the terminology here actually trips up a lot of developers. We borrow this naming convention straight from electrical engineering. Look at these two states. When the circuit breaker is closed, that actually means it is unpaused. The electrical circuit is connected, the power's flowing, and all your functions work normally. But when an emergency happens, the breaker trips to the open state. An open circuit means the wire's physically separated. The flow is broken, the contract is paused. So just remember this rule of thumb. Closed means normal day-to-day operations, and open means emergency stop. Section 3. Building the emergency switch. The concept is great, but execution is everything, right? So let's roll up our sleeves and actually build this thing in Solidity. Building a functional, minimal circuit breaker really boils down to 4 straightforward steps. 1. Set up your state variables. 2. Create your modifiers. 3. Wire up your admin controls. And 4. Gate the critical functions. Let's walk through the actual code for each of these. Step 1. The variables. These are the heart of the machine. We establish a simple Boolean to represent our open or closed state. We make it public, which is super important, so that off-chain monitors and users can easily see if the contract is active. Then we have an owner variable. This stores the admin address allowed to throw the switch. Now, as a quick aside, in a real production environment, you really want this to be a multi-sig wallet or a governance contract. But for our basic implementation here, a single address does the trick just fine. Step 2 is creating the gatekeeper itself. We build a modifier that runs right before any protected function. It checks that Boolean we just made. If the system is paused, the gatekeeper immediately reverts the transaction. And noticed error message here? Providing a clear string like paused is absolutely crucial. It ensures your front end, your test assertions, and your automated scanners instantly know exactly why a transaction just bounced. Step 3 brings us to the admin controls. We create a pause function, protected so only the designated owner can use it. But look at that second line of code, emitting events. Guys, this is not optional. If you want a robust system, you literally must emit events when changing security critical states. Otherwise, off-chain monitors watching your contract are left totally in the dark, wondering why everything suddenly stopped working.
Section 4. Testing your failsafe. Because an emergency brake that you haven't tested is honestly just a disaster waiting to happen.
Think about this for a second. What happens if you build a state-of-the-art emergency control room, complete with a massive red stop button, but you accidentally lock yourself out of the room? Sounds ridiculous, right? But in smart contracts, this kind of stuff happens all the time. This is exactly why we use testing frameworks like Hardhat and Chai. We have to mathematically prove our open and closed states behave exactly as intended under pressure. Your unit tests need to act as a totally ruthless quality assurance inspector. You must assert these specific conditions. First, obviously, the contract actually compiles. Second, that your target function, let's call it critical action, actually reverts when the breaker is open. Third, that it executes perfectly when the breaker is closed. And finally, that your admin transitions, like pausing and unpausing, work properly, are restricted to the owner, and correctly emit those vital events we just talked about. Pass those 4, and you've got a solid failsafe, for sure. Section 5. Avoiding common pitfalls. Let's have a slightly painful but hopefully humorous look at what goes wrong when developers totally botch the installation of their shiny new emergency brake. Get a load of this quote from an anonymous wrecked dev. "I built the perfect pause button. I just forgot to put it on the withdraw function." Ouch, right? You can spend hours writing the most elegant pausing logic, rigorous access controls, the works, and then completely forget to type whenNotPaused next to the actual function that moves the money. If the modifier isn't on the sensitive function, the whole breaker does absolutely nothing. So, the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. Avoid these fatal errors. Missing the modifier is number 1. Number 2 is making your paused variable private. If it's private, your automated monitoring scripts can't easily check the state on chain, meaning an exploit could be draining your contract while your monitors just sit there taking notes. Third, failing to emit events. Fourth, using tx.origin instead of msg.sender, a classic anti-pattern. And finally, locking the owner out, like accidentally transferring ownership to the 0 address. Test against all of these guys. Section 6, wrapping up the breaker. We built our emergency switch, we tested it, and we know exactly what mistakes to avoid. Now, let's see how this all fits into our broader security architecture. Today, we covered the circuit breaker. This is your wide, immediate, global stop for critical failures. It's a blunt instrument. But you don't really want to shut down your entire protocol every time a minor issue pops up. And that brings us to the next lesson in our module, rate limiting. Rate limiting is a precise tool. It throttles repeated, abusive behavior without requiring a full system shutdown. These two patterns work together perfectly. You use rate limiting to manage the flow, and you slam the circuit breaker when the dam completely breaks. Which leaves us with one final thought. Are you ready to pair your global pause button with precise rate limiting throttles? Because that is exactly what we'll be tackling in the next lesson. The absolute best security systems use layers of defense, and you are well on your way to mastering them. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me in this explainer, proudly made by Forge College. To dive deeper into this subject, get hands-on with some code, and explore a whole range of other awesome Web3 topics, I highly encourage you to check out our website at forge.college. Keep building, keep testing, and I'll see you in the next one.